What is up, DTube? What is up, Steam blockchain? So today I want to talk a little bit about why token leasing, token renting, why it will be huge. Why are people gonna rent tokens? Because first of all, it can sound a bit strange. Use the concept of renting tokens. Why would anyone rent tokens? But it's not that strange when we start to look at these business models. Start first with renting out real estate. That the people sort of saw that it's easier to just rent when you want to try something out than own something for life. So this is also the aspect that we're going to see in the token realm, and this is also the aspect that's going to move to cars eventually, how people can rent out their car and earn tokens, and then the car drives itself. Even though that might sound a little bit strange right now, but it's coming as technology improves. And now we're starting to see these new leasing and renting models on coming out, the apps and websites, and we can see on the Steam blockchain how people are delegating their tokens, but at the same time as they're delegating, that they're getting some other tokens, but they're still keeping the tokens that they have. It's safe. They can rent resources, rent their tokens. So why is this going to be so huge? Because what humans really want is the access. They don't really care that much about ownership. If we talk about most people, they just care about the access. So that is interesting. This is something that if we can lower the entry level to access, it means opportunity. It means massive opportunity, because a person, it's cheaper to empower a person by making it so they don't have to be an owner, right? So and the opportunity of be able to easily empower a person. You can say that almost what I think is gonna happen is maybe this is we're seeing in the real world. Maybe a few are owners, and most of the others rent. Now you can make an argument that, for example, with real estate, that a lot of people own that and so on, but we take a look at even ownership in the digital economy. It does sound in some aspects a little bit strange. If a person can just get the access, do you really have to be an owner? And we take a look at a lot of people in the future, they're really not going to have to create stuff. So they're mainly going to be like an investor into other people. It's just going to make more sense that, let's say, when every person maybe sits on 1 million tokens or whatever, it just makes sense to rent that out to someone else. Because a person is going to earn via staking, via airdrops and all these drops of tokens, and then they're just going to sit on these tokens, and most of them is going to be idle, same as we're seeing with, and the idle, having something idle is an opportunity cost. It's banks have sort of in many ways realized this with fractional reserve banking, how what they realize is, okay, we can own something, right? We can own some value. Or we can triple that value or quadruple that value by rent or share it out. Or they come up with clever systems where they can just create more value. And that is basically the same thing with rent and leasing. It's clever systems to generate more value. Let's say a person is an owner of a house. Okay, so they have something of value. But let's say they have a few rooms. If they can rent them out at the same time, maybe even as they're living there, you can see how much more value you can create from the same value that you already have. It's these clever systems where people are gonna realize, wait, it's like I can earn so much from you stoking, or from you staking, or from you renting, or from just sharing something that I have, that it's just gonna be so much superior than owning tokens. Owning tokens is gonna be big because you need that to be able to rent and share and all that, but the level of influence, that is an interesting topic. It's gonna be interesting to see this be played out. It's gonna be really, really, really interesting to see it play out, because I think that for a lot of businesses and for a lot of people, it's very hard to sort of understand these new concepts, because it's definitely not something that you can do with fiat money in an easy way, these new business models. Because what's happening with these business models, and I think I talked about it a little bit in the past, is that the human becomes like a private bank. The human becomes like a lender, right? So the human is doing all these stuff that you needed a big building for in the past, which is super, super fascinating. It's super, super, super fascinating. And when you have, let's say, a token abundance, that's not really gonna be where it's not really gonna make that much change in a person's life. If, let's say, they have tons of tokens, they're an owner of that, and then they can get double that, or triple that. It's probably not, for most people, gonna make that much of a lifestyle difference. But if they can rent out their influence, they're gonna create connections, they're gonna create human relationships, and that becomes probably more value, because more novelty, you can get knowledge about what other people have perceived in life, and you can merge sort of information in this sort of interesting way. And a lot of models in the past has failed with the share and all that, mainly because production, humans had to deal with the production. Humans had to work in factories or at various sort of jobs and do menial tasks, and then it's kind of hard to have like an ideal rent and share economy that is super profitable for all sides, because it kind of sounds like some socialism thing or whatever. But when production is being handled by, when there is no human involved in the production rate, it means that you really can have an abundant sort of social society, which is going to be interesting. At least it's going to be more fair than in the past. Obviously, we're always going to have mega wealthy, like super, super wealthy, but in general, everyone is going to be better well off than in the past. And they always make these theories that we are gonna get a new super poor class of humans, but it comes down to if humans sort of educate themselves and if they're using the resources that they have widely available. So it's a lot of personal responsibility as well, but a person, if they want, the resources should be there to be able to build stuff or experiment with stuff, and I think it's going to happen. So there are also some other aspects to this. And that is the paradigm shift. We sort of have to look in this industry how large players we need to see how large players, large companies, and large institutions also, we have to see what kind of moves they're making, because they're probably also going to FOMO in, and they are probably going to FOMO in when they see other institutional companies get invested. But it sort of is, right now we're sort of in an uncertain period where we sort of need to see people's paradigm shift need to change. They sort of need to, just in general, the paradigm shift needs to change in how people are looking at value and just how profit has been done in capitalism. You sort of need to update that business model because it needs to be more win-win on all sides. And I think it can be more win-win on all sides, but it's just going to take some time for both humans and companies to sort of update their paradigms and sort of experiment. So I think that the next 2 to 3 years is going to be a lot of there's a lot of the foundation layer, as a friend told me, the foundation layer is still being laid down. Okay, so the first mainstream hype, late 2017, 2018 was also a bunch of hype, and we still have 2019, there's still a bunch of hype, but there is mainly stuff that is being worked on behind, or the layer needs to be laid down before the real on-ramp and onboard of people can come. And a lot of projects, there's going to be a lot of projects that disappear. There's going to be a lot of there's going to be so much that's going to fail because we don't really know how the future platforms are going to look like or what people are going to gravitate towards. But well, we know that people are going to gravitate to the places that gives them the best experience, but not just the most value, but also value in terms of friends and connections. So we have these bigger companies, and if they're not making move to blockchain and tokens and crypto and stuff like that, it's going to take a longer time to connect all these blockchains and all these value systems, all these apps, all these websites, and have value between all these services. It's going to take a longer time if the bigger companies where all people's friends hang, if they are slower to move. So it's not just that people want value in terms of tokens and things like that, they also want value in terms of their friends and connections. So the early people eventually in this token world, I think they eventually gonna, when they sit on a ton of tokens, eventually that goes up in so much value, they're just gonna become almost like big companies that just, or they're gonna be as an entity that just rents out massive value to other humans for very affordable cost. And that is that's quite interesting because that was something that just wasn't possible in the past, to be able to delegate so much influence. And and power will sort of trickle down. But it's going to take a couple of years to see this be rolled out, and yeah. So, but yeah, rent and leasing, it's gonna be huge. It's really going to be huge, and especially right now with tokens and things like that, we have maybe like some devs and people experimenting with doing their own token projects, but eventually I think that we're gonna see larger experiments where just regular people can develop their whole D apps or businesses used in a side chain, or do some side projects, and we're gonna see a larger movement into experimentation. And what I think is going to happen then is that we may not have even seen the best tokens yet. Like the best projects have probably not even been created yet. So we're going to see a lot of cool stuff be unveiled in the future that's going to be much better. So it's going to be so much disruption where someone comes up with something better and then someone improves on that, and it's very interesting when that is going to speed up. I also think in many aspects that for stability for a human, why I also think token rent and lease is going to be huge is because, let's say, because it's going to create a more stable way of looking at value flows. Because what I think is going to happen is people probably eventually going to put it in some savings place, their large value, and then to get perspective on things, they are going to take what they earn from rent to do micro tweaks in how they look at value, and that is also going to be quite fascinating. So yeah, I love the future. I think it's going to be pretty epic, and the next 5 years, blockchain, crypto space, there is going to be so many improvements, and that is going to be amazing. Yeah, have an awesome day, DTube. Have an awesome day, Steam, blockchain. Bye bye.